Welcome to Happy Trails Hiking. On this station, you will find content about park travel as well as living a healthy lifestyle. If you're interested in those sorts of things, I would invite you to subscribe. My name is Kay, and this is the Healthy Lifestyle Show. On this show, I want to offer you encouragement to live the life you love. This is Travel Tuesday, and I have a very special guest for you today. Julie App is the founder of Open Wide the World, a travel website centered on the premise that knowledge enriches travel and travel enriches life. Julie began traveling before she can even remember, driving around the country in the back of her parents' Pinto wagon for weeks on end. Back then, childhood Julie didn't appreciate her mother reading the guidebooks aloud as they approached destinations. But as an adult, Julie understands the importance of not just seeing, but truly understanding her travels. Today, Julie and her own family, which includes husband Homer and 11-year-old Meg, continue the tradition of family travels, focusing on the cultural and historic context of their destinations. Julie and her family are currently based in the Aurora area, just outside of Chicago, Illinois. They spend as much time as they can camping, hiking, and traveling all over the Midwest and beyond, and sharing it all on Open Wide the World. Welcome, Julie. It is good to have you here today.
Hi, Kay. It's nice to be here.
Great. Thanks for coming. And I love looking at your website. And for those viewers who might not know, I met Julie on Twitter in Twitter chat called Midwest Monday Chat. I don't know, it just came across my feed one day and I went, I've got Midwest stuff. Let's put this out. And I think we were talking about pie, and I have lots of pie. So we got good pie here in the Midwest. That's all there is to it. And now I get to host. So thank you very much for that, Julie. It's quite an honor.
Yes, I'm so glad you could take that over. It's in good hands. I mean, you know, if it all started with pie, it can only go awesome places from there.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Well, I've got several questions for you. And I know, guys, this is a premiere. So if those folks that are in the live chat have questions for Julie, she's going to try to be there. If not, then you can ask the questions down in the comments below, and I'll make sure she gets those. All right. So what exactly does Open Wide the World mean, Julie? What does it mean to you?
You know, I'm surprised actually that I don't get asked that more often. Open Wide the World. It's got multi-parts how this started. I'd say going back to when I was a teenager, I started traveling on my own. And when I'd get back, peers and even some adults would say like, wow, that's so awesome you did that. I'd never have the courage to do that. And at the time, I don't think I fully understood what that meant. It kind of bothered me. Like, why does everyone think I'm just brave enough to do it? They're not doing it because they're scared, and I'm doing it because I'm brave. Like, I felt like they were discounting the fact that I was scared too, and I did it anyway. And then over, I don't know, a lifetime, I guess, I started to realize I had actually been given, had the privilege of being given the tools to make me courageous in the face of fear. So yes, I was scared just like they were, but my parents had actually given me the tools that made me feel like the world was wide open to me. And so I started to see that comment a little bit differently, you know, and people had said, you're so lucky, I'd be too scared to do that. Yes, I was scared, but I had been given the tools from my parents to really just feel like the world was ready to be explored. I never had any other feeling but that the world was wide open in front of me. My mom would talk to anyone who crossed her path, and I think that kind of exposed me to lots of different people. And my dad, if I can digress to a funny story, well,
sure,
interesting story. My dad had spent some time in Africa before I was born, in the early days of the Peace Corps. And when I was little, his office was right across from the public library. So he might come home one day, just having stopped at the library at lunch, and come home with a record, back in the record player days.
I remember those.
A record of songs for me and my sister to learn in Swahili, or something like that, you know.
Wow.
My mom might have been at a conference and randomly ended up chatting with some gals, found out they lived in India working with Mother Teresa, so she invited them to dinner, you know.
That's amazing.
The world was coming to us, and we felt like we were kind of getting out in the world, even, you know, necessarily without leaving the living room or the phonograph, the record player. Yeah, so I always just had this sense that the world was wide open. And I think when I had my own daughter and husband, family, I guess I just wanted to perpetuate that. I wanted my daughter to feel like we had opened wide the whole world for her. I probably would have raised her the same as my parents, even if I hadn't done this intentionally. But I guess because I had realized what my parents were doing, I could make it a bit more intentional going forward. So
Awesome.
that was just my vision, just make through experiences, through knowledge, language, culture, you know, give her the feeling that we've opened wide the world.
That is awesome. So, wow, I'm blown away. That's amazing. So how did you decide to become travel writers or a traveling writer family even?
Kind of, I guess, it was not an intentional decision, like, let's start a travel blog. It happened, I guess, kind of naturally through what I was just mentioning. When my daughter was little, you know, it's long days at home, just the two of us all the time together, you know, from birth till school starts. And during that time, I think I just used the time we had, passed the time we had, by doing some of the same things my parents did, you know, bringing languages into the home to play around with, just kids' songs in other languages, maybe crafts that would help her kind of connect with another culture, books, you know, library books that just maybe helped her to have exposure to something we wouldn't see in our little suburban life. And in that time, you know, moms, I think, sometimes can feel so separated from the rest of society. And I found a group online of multicultural moms who were doing the same kind of thing. And so to become more involved in that community and feel like I was involved in a community, even being at home, I started kind of like a mommy blog, but it was a multicultural mommy blog.
Okay.
So at that time, you know, I was just writing about the kind of things we were doing, you know, like I mentioned, languages, crafts, foods from other culture, from, you know, like the toddler and preschool age. And then as my daughter got older, we started, I guess, connecting with the world around us and the wider world more through travels. And so, you know, she got into school. She and I were doing less of these sort of at-home craft and cooking world things together. But then our family was doing more of the bigger trips together. So the mommy blog just kind of slowly evolved, I guess, not intentionally, but just because of the natural course of life, evolved into a travel blog.
Awesome.
So you still see a little bit of that. Let's sort of force a cultural experience on the website. Last year, we spent the year, my daughter and I, she was 10 then, so we'd read books aloud together that, you know, were about people in other cultures, and then we do an activity that related to that culture. So sometimes we kind of still force some world, I guess, awareness in. But
well, that, you know, I wish that were, being a former teacher, I wish that were something that more parents would do. Would be to go, okay, we're going to be intentionally multicultural. Even if we don't know about that culture, we're going to go find out and let's go learn about it together. Yeah. But I think that's awesome.
It was so much fun. It was so much fun. I miss it a little bit. It was hard to commit to going into, my daughter just started junior high, so it's hard to go into committing to every month, you know, a book and an activity. I got to figure out a way to get it back in, though. Yeah, I miss it. Plus, it's fun to get to read tween books sometimes.
Oh, well, yeah, that's true too. It's much easy reading, you know. It's all good. So, as a multicultural family, I mean, does that change the way you travel? Do you think that changes things?
You know what? It does. And I've wanted to write about this. And interesting, you and I didn't talk about this question beforehand.
No, we didn't. And I'm sorry. My random throw out question.
No, it's a really, really interesting one. I haven't figured out exactly how to work with it and write about it or speak about it well. So excuse this just sort of.
Okay, no problem.
But yes, in fact, when we first moved to the Midwest, so my husband is Asian, and we met and married in California. My daughter was born there. Lots of interracial, multi-ethnic couples there. You know, one thing twice, we would not stand out in a crowd. When we moved to suburban Midwest, it was a very different story. I definitely felt like we were noticed.
I can tell that, yeah, I can tell you that being from the Midwest, growing up here, and then moving south and then moving back, yeah, it's a big culture difference between California and here. So so
that the first time we felt that impact our travels, we were here maybe a year or so, and we were looking for some destinations to just travel to for like a weekend. And I won't name any specifics, but the one I was most interested in, we started to notice there were no pictures of any other races in the in the travel sector there. We didn't see any evidence that anyone of any other ethnicity or mixed couples or mixed families were at the place we were thinking to go. So we actually ended up spending our travel dollars to take a trip out of the country instead. We weren't ready yet to see what that meant to be the only multicultural family in an area. So we got more comfortable, I think, as we've been here longer. But in the first 6 months or a year, we were not ready to.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for sharing that with me. I'm sorry if it was, I sent Julie the questions in advance and then and went off book. Sorry.
It's an important topic. I don't mind talking about it. I just feel like it needs to be spoken about well, so it's serving a purpose.
I totally understand. And yes, thank you for answering. And if I go off the cuff, just tell me to stop it and I won't. Thank you. No, that was wonderful. And I get where you're coming from. So I guess my next question then is, do you always travel as a family or do you go solo sometimes as the travel writer?
We always travel as a family. If it's travel, if there's a conference or get together of college friends, one of us might go alone, or occasionally my husband and I might do, just like the marriage week or weekend, like a fun reconnecting. But if we're traveling for the sake of traveling, we always go together. There's just nothing I want to experience that I don't want them to have the experience of also.
Awesome. Yeah, I feel the same way about Matt. I've gone on a couple of trips without him, but I miss him the whole time. And I'm like, okay, I'm on the phone with him the whole time or texting the whole time. Look what I get to see. And I'm sorry you can't be here. So I get it. Yeah. I get it. So my favorite question for travelers, what is your dream destination?
Yes, that is a favorite question amongst travelers. It's so funny that I never have an answer for that. But in a good way, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
I feel like I have the kind of traveler's spirit where everything and anything can be like an adventure or a travel, like just going to the next town and going to a new coffee shop or going across the planet. Like both to me are, I hate to say it, but they're equally worthy. Because I've found sometimes through necessity that you have to dig deeper to make something interesting. I've found you can dig deeper and make anything interesting. I seriously I just love anywhere. Even places I might not love, I still, every experience is just something new to understand or discover or interact with.
That's awesome.
I don't have a dream destination, but I do have a dream travel experience.
Okay.
I guess that's my version of the answer. I've always wanted to do a through hike or a big section of a through hike. Maybe not a whole through hike anymore. It used to be the Appalachian Trail was my dream because I had lived on both ends of the trail at different periods. And so I've done a bit of it, day hikes on multiple parts. So that was always my dream destination or accomplishment. But I feel like I've found in recent years reading about it, it sounds so different than it used to be that I'm not sure if I'm ready to experience the new version and let go of my old vision. So I've sort of just moved my dream to the Superior hiking trail. Because I never knew much about it to begin with, so there's nothing that's going to change when I experience it. I don't have to shed an old dream and accept a new one.
Cool. I understand
that it's recent enough that it's probably current. So
sure. That's awesome. Well, I've always been interested in the Ozark Trail because it's just out my back door, so that would be something. We've sectioned hike parts of it, but so we should get together and hike it.
Totally. I'm ready.
No.
Yeah. I might need a couple weeks to get in a little better shape. We did the Rockies this summer and we trained hard for it. And
Okay.
we went home and took a week off, and that week just kept on going.
Yeah, I understand. I understand completely. We did Grand Tetons this summer. I hiked 3 miles up and went, hey, I'm gonna hike back down now. So I get it. And I'm really good at camping. I sit in the campground really well. I can
get on board with that.
With the best of them.
Oh.
Anyway, yeah. So that's awesome. I love that. We probably next summer, Matt's going to get me to hike about 13 and a half miles of the Ozark Trail again. So it's a big, long day hike, but it's a fun time. So
I'm going to look that up. I'm glad you mentioned that. I feel like I've seen that maybe in Midwest Monday chat, but so much good stuff comes through there. It's hard to memorize all of it and get to all of it, but
sure.
That might be a good sort of training one before Superior, or maybe Superior to train for the Ozarks. I'll have to look that up.
That's it. Sounds awesome. All right. So question number 5-ish. What trip would you say was the most inspirational trip that you've been on?
I'd have to say, it's almost the obvious, but it's probably also the truest. When I was 16, I went to New Zealand. That was really hard at first. In fact, very, very difficult. I was one of those 16-year-olds, well, probably all 16-year-olds, just so homesick. It's before the internet, so there's no email and FaceTime and that kind of communication. International phone calls were horrendously expensive and also not even reliable. So there was not a lot of opportunity to communicate home. I just felt so alone on the other side of the planet at 16. But I got through that. And from then on, it just was the most amazing experience of my life. I was there about a year, 11 months and 3 weeks. So basically a year. And I think that just sort of set the tone for the fact that travels can be hard and still awesome at the same time. Gave me the courage to take maybe the next trip. A couple of years later, I spent a summer in Quebec, and then a couple of years later, I moved to France. So it was inspirational in the sense that it gave me, I guess, the experience to know that I could do it, and of course, the wanderlust that makes me never want to stop.
Oh yeah, I love that. I understand completely. I've never been out of the country, really. Matt and I went on a cruise, but that's not being out of the country. That's being on a boat. So a ship, excuse me. Yeah, I love that. That's really, really cool that you had that experience. I also was noticing on your website that your husband had a travel awakening in Bryce and Zion National Parks. And, there are two places I love. So I thought that was really neat. So very cool. I'll have to hear that story some other time. Maybe I'll interview him too. Oh, man. All right. So then we have our favorite questions here on the Healthy Lifestyle Show are about food. So what are your favorite meals when you're on the road? What's a go-to for you?
Boy, I don't know that I have a go-to. This is probably sounds very strange for a traveler, but food is actually not a really big, I know it's very hard to believe, but here's where I can redeem this because we're a family of travelers. So not everything has to be everything for me.
Okay.
This is a major deal for my husband. He's a super foodie. So I don't know that I have like a go-to or a favorite. And it probably works better that we don't both love food because then I can just go where he wants to go, basically. And it doesn't matter to me. I'm kind of like I eat because you need it to survive sort of person. But he really gets into researching in advance, like what the locals, where the locals like to go. We try obviously to stay away from, sort of the tourist trap sort of things. He's really into barbecue, so I eat a lot of barbecue when we travel, but not like can't necessarily just Kansas City barbecue. Wherever we are, whatever country, whatever state, someone's grilling meat over something.
Wow.
So I think that's kind of neat, even though I'm not a huge meat fan or food fan. It's kind of neat to see the same thing represented in different ways and experienced differently by different cultures.
Certainly, yeah. Asian barbecue is way different than our fatty American barbecue.
Yeah, that's true. And then when we were in Puerto Rico, I was almost horrified, just like watching seeing the meat just sit there being kind of like hacked on by something that looks like an axe to me. But my husband grew up in Philippines. That's everyday life for him.
Sure.
People chewing the flies away. Like it's a neat experience. Like I said, to see the same food managed across cultures.
Sure. So is that your food experience that you will never forget, or do you have an unforgettable food experience?
I guess I have one that came to mind most quickly as an unforgettable food experience, but not surprisingly, it doesn't hinge solely on the food. In fact, I don't even remember what I ate.
That's okay.
It was a food-related experience.
Hmm.
I was in the south of France, taking just like a train along the Mediterranean coast to get to a friend's wedding. Interestingly, when I lived in France, a friend stayed there and married a man. So this is years later. I'm coming back after we had left France. I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but in any case, I'm going back for a friend's wedding by myself, taking the train across through these small towns in the south of France. And I get off in one to have dinner, and it's not a tourist area at all. It's very, it's like Catalan. People have a very specific look. Everything about me shows I'm not from there. I don't have the right hair color, the right, clothes. Don't obviously speak the language with the right accent, etc.
Yeah.
And I was by myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I just stood out like a sore thumb in this tiny little cafe in this tiny town that's probably had, 5 other tourists since its existence. I don't know why. It was one of those it just felt really exciting to be there, really empowering to be there, a little bit awkward to be there, like all good and bad at the same time. I could feel people looking at me, but not in like a frightening way. Kind of like everyone seemed to just be, I assume,
ordering here. What is she doing? Yeah. Why did she think to come here and eat? And
and someone had a waiter come over and bring me a glass of wine from the region, just so I would get to experience it. It was no one who was going to come over and follow up by trying to talk to me or anything. It wasn't like, or you're like, I don't know if I should take this. Just because they knew I wasn't from there, so I should get this little experience.
Wow, that is a cool experience. I love that. That is awesome. All right. Well, I love your website and your blog, and I love following along. It does say that you've been to, between you and, between your family, I guess you and your husband and your daughter, you've lived in 9 states and 5 countries, and you visited 46 states and 13 countries. So can I ask, what's next?
That's a good question. Oh, another one I hadn't prepared for, and I don't have the answer for.
Okay.
I guess currently, I think we're doing a lot more local things, Midwest things, just because of the phase of life.
Right, time of year, school.
Yeah. I don't know that any of us right now. In fact, we do talk a lot about what's our big travel dream, and I think we're kind of all 3 of us sort of this. Well, not my daughter; she'll take Disney any day. My husband and I think, are both kind of like everything's awesome. There's no place to not go.
That's great.
But I'm glad you asked that. I have to think of that. I need a dream of what's next.
Yeah, well, I always have a schedule and what's coming up next. So didn't know if you had, hey, here's the next blog we're covering. But so our viewers know, Julie has a lot of things on her blog, and she talks about the holidays, and she has food and beverage and outdoor stuff, and did a lot of Route 66 stuff, which makes me happy. But if you need ideas or blogs or events coming up for holidays, be sure to check out her page. And if you do, go over and tell her that Kay from Happy Trails Hiking sent you. Julie, is there anything else that you would be interested in having our viewers know about your family?
Um, actually, I just thought as you were talking, I thought maybe something they might like to know about our website is we really get into the nerdy side of things. If you really want to understand your travels more deeply as a way to maybe connect more, or understand maybe what you're doing at home, kind of connect with that more deeply, we are going to be best friends. So come connect with us on the website there. If you, for example, want to connect more with Christmas and world history by making a cocktail from another country and learning about it. Yes, we'll make it with you. We'll drink it with you. We'll tell you about its history.
That's awesome. That's great. I know that my sister would really enjoy your website. She's quite a researcher. So, and she's definitely the nerdier of the two of us in a good way. So,
yes.
Yes, so that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here with me today, Julie. It's been awesome to actually get to talk to you instead of typing at you all the time.
Well, I guess next time we'll probably talk on the trail, it sounds like.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Sounds great. Sounds great. Well, if you'll hang out for just a second, I will close out the show.
Okay.
All right, guys. Thank you for hanging in there and meeting Julie with me today. I hope that you will go over to her website and her blog and leave a couple of comments. Let her know that you are here from Happy Trails Hiking. Her links are going to be in the description. I need you to do another thing for me. If you enjoyed this, please be sure to share it with someone else today who would also like to meet Julie from Open Wide the World. And number 3, go out and live the life you love today. And remember, you are not replaceable. Have a great day, guys.